Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The floor was warm beneath my bare feet, the faint hum of the vacuum filling the afternoon silence. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, dust floating in the glow like tiny sparks. I thought I was alone in that stillness, until I felt him. A shift in the air, the slow, deliberate presence of someone stepping closer. My husband. His shadow stretched over me before his voice ever did. I didn't need to turn, I could feel his eyes on me, studying the curve of my back as I bent forward, wiping the edge of the coffee table. I straightened slightly, pretending not to notice, but my pulse betrayed me, thudding louder with each second of silence. I caught a glimpse of him in the reflection of the glass surface, tall, broad-shouldered, the faint lines of his 40s making him look even more commanding. His jaw tightened when my eyes flicked up, and for a heartbeat too long, neither of us looked away. That stolen glance carried weight. The kind that made heat climb my neck and my lips part just enough to breathe him in. He didn't speak. Instead, he stepped closer, so close I could feel the brush of his sleeve against my arm, the warmth radiating through thin fabric. I tried to keep scrubbing, but my hands slowed. His breath ghosted near my ear, steady, deep, the kind of breath that made me shiver because I knew it wasn't accidental. My own breathing faltered, quickening, shallow enough to betray me. The room shrank to just us. Every little sound, the squeak of the cloth, the soft exhale from his chest, became charged, alive. I leaned forward slightly, giving myself the excuse of reaching farther across the table, but in truth it was to feel the weight of his gaze lingering on me. Our shoulders brushed again, this time firmer. His hand hovered at my hip but stopped, the tension of almost touch sparking hotter than any contact. I swallowed, my lips trembling with the words I wouldn't dare say. He lingered a second longer, then pulled back just enough to keep me wanting, leaving the moment suspended, right on the edge of something we both knew was coming. And then, he waited. The air between us had grown so thick, I could taste it. My cloth slipped from my fingers, falling soundlessly onto the table, but neither of us bent to pick it up. Instead, his hand brushed mine, not once, but twice, first like an accident, then like a test. His skin was warm, rougher than mine, and when he didn't pull away, I didn't either. I felt his gaze shift downward, not to my hands, but to my lips. A flicker of hunger passed through his eyes, so quick I might have doubted it, if not for the way his throat tightened when he swallowed. My breath hitched, loud enough in the stillness that I almost cursed myself for giving away too much. I forced a soft laugh, a flimsy shield, but it only made him step closer. His laugh came too, lower, tighter, as though he was fighting something back. When his arm grazed mine again, it wasn't careless, it lingered, trailing heat down my skin until I shivered. I leaned into the table for balance, pretending to straighten the vase of flowers. In truth, I needed the support. My pulse raced, and the scent of him, clean soap with a trace of spice, wrapped around me like a trap. That's when I felt it, the shift. His hand didn't just brush mine this time. It pressed, firmly, deliberately, on the back of my palm, pinning it gently against the polished surface. His thumb moved once, slow and sure, across my skin. The message was clear: he wanted control, and he knew I was letting him take it. A flash of jealousy pricked through me, jealousy of the control he wielded so easily, jealousy of how much I craved it. And yet, I held his eyes, daring him silently, refusing to be the only one unraveling. The silence roared with everything unspoken. What if someone walked in? What if we couldn't stop once it started? What if we destroyed the fragile line between safety and danger? Then it happened, sudden, electric. The vase I pretended to fix tipped forward, wobbling on its base. He reached instinctively, catching it, his hand crossing over mine. The glass never shattered, but the space between us did. His chest pressed against my back, his breath hot against my ear, his grip firm on my wrist. Too close now. Too late to step away. And then, his chest lingered against my back, the weight of his breath sinking into my skin like heat through fabric. For a moment, neither of us moved. The vase sat steady now, but we were anything but. His hand stayed over mine, heavy, claiming, daring me to pull away. I didn't. I should have. Every reason screamed it. This was too much, too close, too dangerous. But the silence between us was magnetic, pulling tighter the longer we held it. My pulse thudded in my ears, and when I finally tried to shift, his fingers tightened just enough to remind me, he wasn't letting go that easily. I inhaled sharply. He caught it. His lips curved, close enough to my ear that I could almost feel the smile. Careful, he whispered, voice low, steady, yet heavy with something unspoken. The sound spread down my spine like a spark. I pushed back with the smallest test, my shoulder nudging into his chest as though by accident. He didn't budge. Instead, he leaned forward, letting the roughness of his jaw graze the side of my temple. The scrape of stubble, the faint warmth of his breath, every detail carved itself into me. I turned, just slightly, enough for my eyes to catch his. We hovered there, faces a breath apart. His gaze dropped to my mouth before returning to my eyes, and the pull between us tightened, unbearable. Then, just as sudden, he stepped back. The loss of heat was instant, sharp. My body swayed forward before I caught myself, before I realized he was testing me. His smirk gave it away. He knew I wanted the closeness more than I wanted control. I steadied myself, lifted my chin. Two could play. I brushed past him deliberately, my hip grazing his thigh, the touch lingering a second too long to be innocent. His breath hitched, low and raw, and the sound made me smile. The room pulsed with tension, each step, each glance, another loop of almost and not yet. My fingers skimmed the edge of the table, his followed after, grazing mine like a shadow. My heart raced. I could feel his patience thinning, fraying like a rope pulled too tight. Then he moved, decisive, bold. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist and pulling me sharply toward him. My breath caught, eyes wide, chest pressed to his. And then, his grip on my wrist tightened just enough to make me stumble against him. My chest collided with his, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to the sound of our breathing, uneven, shallow, tangled together in the small space between us. I looked up, and there it was, his gaze, heavy, locked on mine, dark with something I wasn't supposed to see. My lips parted without thought, and his eyes dropped instantly to the movement, lingering, burning. The air was thick, electric, every inhale pulling me deeper into his gravity. Say something, I whispered, though I wasn't sure I wanted him to. His thumb brushed over the inside of my wrist, slow, teasing, the drag of skin against skin deliberate. What if I don't? His voice was low, almost playful, but the edge beneath it made my stomach twist. I tried to pull back, but his other hand came up, steadying me at my hip. The weight of his palm lingered there, firm, claiming more ground than I'd allowed anyone in a long time. My breath caught, and his smile, barely there, dangerous in its restraint, told me he'd noticed. I tilted my head, testing him, letting my hair fall forward so the strands brushed against his jaw. He didn't move away. Instead, he leaned closer, so close I felt the faintest brush of his lips at my temple. Not a kiss. Just a suggestion of one. My knees nearly buckled. The war raged inside me, reason shouting that this was the line we couldn't cross, desire whispering that we already had. Every shift of his body, every pause of mine, wound the tension tighter. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, could feel his chest rise and fall against mine in unsteady rhythm. Careful, he murmured again, his lips grazing so close to my skin that the word itself was heat. Or what? My voice betrayed me, softer, shakier than I intended. His fingers slipped from my wrist, only to trace a line slowly down my forearm, feather-light. The anticipation of where that touch might stop was unbearable. And then, footsteps. The faintest sound from the hallway. Both our heads turned, eyes wide, caught in the knife edge of the moment. His hand froze. My breath stalled. On the verge. Interrupted. The footsteps in the hallway faded, never entering the room. We stayed frozen, barely daring to breathe until the silence stretched again. When I finally looked back at him, his eyes hadn't moved from mine. He was smiling, not with relief, but with something darker, something that told me he'd taken the interruption as nothing more than a delay. I tried to step away, but the glass vase betrayed me again. My hip clipped the edge of the table, and in the scramble to steady it, I stumbled, straight into his chest. His arms caught me instantly, one hand at my waist, the other bracing the back of my shoulder. Clumsy, he teased, his voice low, almost amused. But he didn't let go. If anything, he pulled me closer, steadying me in a way that didn't feel accidental at all. I pressed my palms to his chest, meaning to push him away. Instead, I felt the warmth beneath his shirt, the firm rise and fall of his breathing. My fingers lingered longer than they should have, tracing the edge of the fabric where his collar gaped. His smirk deepened, as if he knew every thought I was fighting. "You always fall into me when you're nervous," he whispered. The words weren't true, but the way he said them made my stomach tighten, made me wonder if maybe they could be. Before I could answer, he reached past me, lifting the glass I'd left half-filled on the table. Without breaking eye contact, he brought it to his lips, took a slow sip, then offered it to me. His fingers brushed mine when I accepted. The rim was still warm from his mouth when it touched mine, and the intimacy of it stole my breath more than the drink itself. I caught his gaze flicking to my lips again, waiting for me to notice. I did, and deliberately set the glass down with a soft click. My move, my refusal to be only on the receiving end. His jaw flexed, the smallest sign that I'd gotten under his skin. But he didn't retreat. He closed the gap instead, leaning down until his forehead nearly touched mine. "Careful," he murmured again, the word heavier now, almost mocking. I laughed softly, though my voice wavered. "You keep saying that. Sounds like a dare." His fingers brushed against my hip, a feather-light graze that turned into a slow, deliberate press. My breath caught. His other hand slid lower, almost touching mine but stopping just short, holding me in the torture of almost contact. The room felt too small, too hot. Every accidental brush, every shared look, had pulled us to this edge, and neither of us seemed willing to step back. It was inevitable now. His lips hovered close, the warmth of his breath mingling with mine, the tension stretching to the breaking point. And then, his hands stayed firm at my waist, holding me as if the world outside the living room no longer existed. I should have stepped back, broken free, laughed it off. But instead, I leaned in, just enough for my forehead to brush against his. The soft press was intimate, almost innocent, yet it carried more weight than any kiss could. Our breathing fell into rhythm, shallow, uneven, tangled in the narrow space between us. I felt his chest rise against mine, felt his breath whisper across my lips. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it was everything that came before one. My eyes fluttered shut for a heartbeat, surrendering to the gravity pulling me closer. "You always make it hard to stop here," he whispered, voice raw with restraint. His thumb traced a slow circle at my waist, burning through fabric. The touch was steady, deliberate, making it impossible to pretend this was just chance. I drew in a shaky breath. "Maybe I don't want you to stop." The words slipped out, softer than I meant, but heavy with truth. His forehead pressed harder to mine, a silent answer, a war finally giving way to surrender. For that breathless moment, it felt inevitable, like we had crossed the line we'd been dancing around. Then he pulled back just slightly, eyes narrowing, lips curved in a half-smirk. "Careful," he murmured again, the words sharper now, cutting through the haze. "Because once I start, I won't stop." The warning wasn't empty. It was a truth I could feel in the tremor of his breath, in the way his hand tightened against my waist as if he was holding himself back with every ounce of will. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering. The air was thick, charged, on the cusp of breaking. And then, the twist. From the hallway, a voice called out. My name. We froze, the spell shattering. His hand stayed on my waist a second too long before slipping away, slow, reluctant. My skin burned where his touch had been, the echo of it refusing to fade. I turned toward the sound, but before I could move, he leaned in once more, his lips at my ear, whispering words that shifted everything. You think this is over? It's only just begun. And then, the voice from the hallway echoed again, closer this time. I stiffened, but his hand brushed once more at my waist, slower now, deliberate. A silent reminder that what had just happened was real, that it wasn't some fragile dream easily erased by an interruption. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. They held mine steady but heavy with something unspoken. His smirk was gone, replaced by a look deeper, softer, like he'd crossed the same edge I had and wasn't sure how to return. I tried to speak, to untangle words from the knot in my throat, but nothing came. Instead, he stepped forward first. Not a kiss. Not a bold move this time. Just an embrace, arms circling my back, pulling me into his chest. I melted into it before I could think. The hug wasn't fierce or demanding, it was steady, grounding, yet it carried all the fire of everything we hadn't done. His cheek rested against my temple, his breath slow now, calmer, but still warm enough to make my skin prickle. I meant what I said, he murmured against my hair. This isn't over. I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. His arms lingered a second longer than they should have, before he finally let me go. The absence of his touch left me colder than I wanted to admit. The hallway grew silent again. Whoever had called out was gone, leaving us in a quiet that felt heavier than before. I smoothed my hands over the table, over the cloth I'd dropped earlier, pretending to busy myself. But my heart still raced, and I could feel his gaze on me. When I finally glanced back, he was watching me with that same look, the one that had started all of this. A half-smile tugged at his lips, not mocking, not playful this time, but secretive. A smile that promised he was holding on to more than he'd said. I shook my head lightly, trying to mask the tremor of a laugh. You're impossible, I whispered. Maybe, he replied, low and certain. But you'll think about me every time you bend over that table. The words hit me like the first moment all over again, tying us back to where it had started. The cleaning, the silence, the shift in the air. Full circle, but different now. Something had changed. I didn't answer. Instead, I let a smile spread, small, secret, matching his. We left the moment there, unresolved but undeniable. The kind of moment that lingers long after the scene fades. Not an ending. Just a pause.